It's not around the corner anymore. It's actually here. Iran, modern day Iran, exactly geographically where it is, and the people who self-identify as Persians, proudly. It's called Milchemes Gog and Magog, the War of Gog. You call it whatever you want. It's an end-time war. It's in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Well, it's happening right now. As we are speaking right now, in real time, Israel is battling Iran, and it's happening right now. Okay, so it's happening now. That's headlines. Like, we don't have to guess. Indicators from every side of exactly where we are in history. At least half of known Jews in the world living here in Israel. That has not been the case since the days of Hezekiah. 2,700 years since the Neo-Assyrian Empire. If any of these ballistic missiles, the sirens may go off in the middle of our interview. If any of them are armed with a nuclear device, God forbid, and make it through all the slingshots and the anti-missile systems, all the systems are in place, that's it. The most dangerous country in the world is gaining access to the most dangerous weapon in the world. The world could see what's unfolding in real time. This was what dominates the news.
Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Aaron Sokol, and you're watching Parsha Inspired. This morning at 5:58 a.m., my family was awoken, and the entire community was awoken to the sound of air raid sirens of incoming hypersonic ballistic missiles from Iran. These are dirty bombs with multiple random targets, meaning that although the entire missile can be focused at our community, the heads of these missiles will shoot out randomly. These are not used for military purpose. This is used for maximum civilian damage. And in this video, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look and re-examine Gog and Magog, because what just happened today marks a significant moment in this prophecy unfolding. Prophecy number one is that eyes are on Israel.
And this is what polarizes everyone, is over Israel. That's what's going nuts in YouTube land, where people are trying to engineer the 2028 elections so that a president either favorable to Israel or anti-Israel. That's why Tucker and that other guy, the Young Turks, they're sitting together and kissing, and they can't love each other enough. Why? But Tucker's supposed to be conservative, and the other, and whatever his name is, the Turk guy, is a left-winger. No, they all hate Israel. That's what they have in common. They set aside their differences. That's why Hamas, which is Sunni, and Hezbollah, which is Shia, and those two iterations of Islam don't get along, but those two terror organizations are willing to cooperate for the purpose of destroying Israel. Everything I'm saying is transparent.
And what's becoming more apparent, that Israel's return to the land, the Jews returning into the country, is a theological problem for Christendom and Islam. So before Mashiach comes, the Jews need to return. Let's take a look.
But this, you must know, that Jeremiah 30, verse 3, that the children of Israel return back to Israel after a very long exile. Hosea chapter 3, verse 4 and 5, explicitly states that the children of Israel will spend a very long time in exile with no priest, no sacrifice, no king, none of that. And after, they'll return to the Lord their God and David, their king. It's very, in the Achros Hayom, the end of days, this is very, very clear. This has to be clear. Why? Because if these texts are not transparent, easy to understand, written in the simplest biblical Hebrew, then we won't even know what we're looking for. We'll be lost. Now, it's true, you should know, that in Isaiah we're told that the final generation, I'm fiercely, well, that's not the right word, I'm paraphrasing here, but the servant is going to be blind and deaf. It's going to need God's guidance at the end of days. Who is blind but my servant who is deaf is the measure I've sent. That's Isaiah 42, verse 19 as an example. So God is going to have to grab our hand and walk us through us to convey it to us. That same chapter describes this last moment in history as a time with the birth pangs, with like a woman in labor with contractions. So we do need a lot of guidance during this time.
Here's the question. How do we actually know this is Gog and Magog? Perhaps this is a war, and the Jews will be exiled from the land.
And we're told very clearly at the end of the book of Amos, none of these books whitewash Jewish history. Very clearly at the end of Amos, chapter 9, look at verse 14, 15 as an example, that the children of Israel will be replanted in the Holy Land, and once they return, they will never be uprooted. Please, look it up for yourself. The Jewish people have to return and have to have an army. See Zechariah chapter 12. Nations will come up against Jerusalem, and Jerusalem will be a heavy, burdensome stone against all the nations who come up against it. Again, Zechariah chapter 12, verse 3. God will make the Jewish people strong, mighty warriors. They will have the power of David, even of the angel Lord of hosts. I expect you to be looking this up, because I am making fantastic claims. And it better say what I'm saying it says, or you should be turning me off. Okay, so that's in there. And these are wars. That means the Messiah has not yet come. So the Jews must return to the land of Israel, have sovereignty over the land of Israel, and have sovereignty over Jerusalem. And then Persia, there are many places we can look. You brought up Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39. It's very important, though, that those two chapters, it's called Milchemes Gog and Magog, the War of Gog. You call it whatever you want. It's an end-time war where Persia, with other satellite countries or peoples, go to war with Israel. Well, here we are now. Iran, which is an ancient nation, unlike these other Put and other nations that are mentioned there, these other places have been homogenized. A very significant number of the people who live in Iran, modern-day Iran today, identify as Persian, and their DNA tells they've been there for a very long time, and in their collective consciousness, they consider themselves Persians and are proud of their ancient history. Whereas many areas of North Africa, Kush, what the ancient world, Ethiopia, was all over the place, and nations were homogenized because of wars and so on. Persia, strikingly, is unique in that it's tremendous wars, but it is, relatively speaking, stable compared to other areas of the sub-Sahara where all sorts of tribes have been homogenized due to enormous upheaval. And they have that ancient language and ancient culture and so on. The DNA studies on this are extensive. So therefore, Iran, modern-day Iran, exactly geographically where it is, and the people who self-identify as Persians, proudly, and satellite nations to the north. And what's going on to the north? It's in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Well, it's happening right now. As we are speaking right now, in real time, Israel is battling Iran's proxies, Hezbollah, in the north. Those are Shia Muslims, okay? So it's happening now. That's headlines. Like, we don't have to guess. It's not like just us. This is one of nearly 30 wars in the world, and this is the headline. This is the number one issue all over the world, no matter where. You're in Malaysia, headlines.
But one thing we need to bear in mind about this prediction of Persia is that Persia is an unnatural enemy to Israel. Let's take a look.
Persia, you know how insane Persia is? Let me explain to you why this is ridiculous and why this is so compelling. Persia, the closest part of Persia to me, I'm in Jerusalem right now, is 1,000 kilometers east. It means we share no border with them. Moreover, they're not Arabs. If you want to insult someone living in Iran, call him an Arab, and he will correct you very, very quickly and say, we're not Arabs here. So Persia, Israel, except for that 12-day war, we have nothing to do with them. We have, conversely, just to contrast this, the Arabs we've had a lot of wars with, and we have land issues with Syria, the Golan Heights. We have land issues with Jordan, what's so-called West Bank, Judea and Samaria. We have no issues with them. They're not Arabs. In Tanakh, Yitzchak and Yishmael, the progenitors of our two nations, had a tenuous relationship. So it's understandable why in modern days that the Jews and the Arabs are having a difficult relationship. Now, we have a tradition, it's in the Torah, it's in the Talmud, that at the end of days, the Bnei Yishmael, we'll call them the Arabs, and the Jews will reunite again. We do have that tradition. But what's very critical is Persia doesn't make sense. Moreover, Persia was an empire that was not only not hostile to us, they were very benevolent to us. It was Cyrus the Great who said to the Jews, go back. That means it makes no sense.
So here's where things get very interesting, because if in fact this is the war of Gog and Magog, the war of Gog and Magog serves one purpose, and that is that the world witnesses the falling of the Jews' enemies and thereby establishes Israel as the capital of wisdom for the world, Kimitzion Teitzei Torah. And in order to do this, just like Pharaoh's heart was hardened, also Iran, their heart needs to be hardened. Let's take a look.
America and Israel would love to see a regime change. They would love to see a democracy and the people of Persia, and I hope they do. I hope they're able to vote and so on. But Iran has faced just being smashed to pieces nonstop, and yet their hearts are hardened, and they're going no. And America's just saying to give up the enriched uranium, let the Straits of Hormuz, be open, because the economic consequences are staggering, not even as much for America as for the European nations and its allies, the Gulf nations. Just do that, and we're all good. Everybody goes home.
They're betting on that. We actually are quite ahead of ourselves, because we're already discussing the war of Gog and Magog, but we haven't really brought in what brings Gog and Magog. What events happen? What major tragedy needs to happen? A tragedy that the world has never seen the likes of in modern history. Let's take a look at this next clip.
To give the viewers a sense of scale, Kristallnacht, which was the antecedent event of the Holocaust on November 10th, 1938. So Kristallnacht was like the fuse was lit. 92 Jews were murdered. Here we're speaking about a dark Sabbath day in which 1,200 Jews were murdered in a barbarism that none of us could have imagined. In that until October 7th, you and I thought that the Nazis was like the worst, that was the worst possible level. And then we found out there were actually people who actually enjoyed it, not just pragmatically wanted to murder Jews, but they actually wanted to rape us, burn us, and film it, and then call up their families and tell them about it, which was a whole different level. People that we were on October 6th in 2023 will never be the same people again. Our nation will never be the same. And that triggered a whole series of events, a war in Gaza, and now it's an existential war because the most dangerous country in the world is gaining access to the most dangerous weapon in the world. We have the nation of Israel in the land of Israel, and Jerusalem has been liberated, and then there's a war that explodes. Okay, and this happens after Jacob's trouble, so that's Jeremiah 30, verse 7, which comes after Jeremiah 30, verse 3, that the Jewish people return back to the land. Okay. Thankfully, the easiest chapter in the book of Zechariah to understand is Zechariah 12. Maybe the first chapter, but Zechariah 12 is, and Zechariah is not an easy book in the Bible. It begins with 8 numinous visions that are not very difficult, but it's not that simple. But Zechariah 12 is really easy. Zechariah 8 is really easy. And it's really important for those to be easy because we have to be able to recognize the Messianic age. Now, if you go to the end of chapter 39, what we're told, I encourage you to read all of it, the nations that come against Israel will be utterly destroyed. I ask you to turn to the God of Israel, to bless Israel. It's very important for you. And why is there this war at the end of days? We're told explicitly. Look at Ezekiel 38, the last verses. To it, please read it. Use any Bible you want, any translation you want, doesn't matter. The reason why this war happens and why all the enemies of Israel are destroyed is that the world will know that I am God. And I'll set my glory among the nations. All the nations will see my judgment that I have executed and my hand that I have laid on them, and also the house of Israel. That means, how do we know? The children of Israel, how do we know this is not just another crazy event in history? No, this is very different, because we're in Israel and the Jewish people have sovereignty over the land of Israel. And there's a war over Jerusalem, and the enemies of Israel are being destroyed, not because we're strong or powerful or beautiful, anything like that, because God is keeping his promise. That's how we can know. I mean, Tanakh is telling us, look at verse 22, that the house of Israel know that I am God from that day forward. So it's not Christ crucified, none of that stuff. It's the war will tell the nation of the world that I'm on. That means we are supposed to look at this war with Iran at the end of days, Persia, at the end of days with its proxies all around us, and see their utter destruction and derive from that the Lord is God, which is an essential feature of the Messianic age, that the knowledge of God will cover the world as the water covers the sea.
And this, my friends, is why you need to learn Tanakh. When you learn Tanakh, then things become so much clearer. You see, Ezekiel 40 till the end is Third Temple prophecy. And we're almost there. So let's take a look at Rabbi Tovia Singer from Outreach Judaism describe this moment.
By the way, Ezekiel 40 is the beginning of the building of the Third Temple. So just know where we are. Like, I'm not a Broadway person or I don't do any of those things, but like they do give you one of these booklets to say Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4. So we're in the Chad Gadyu, we're in the final stage, because this is all Messianic. 40 through 48 is all Mashiach. And so that's where we are. So we don't have to guess. Like, I'm not sitting here like thinking this through logically. The text very clearly says that God is going to keep dragging back the enemies of Israel, and specifically Persia and its proxies, and as a result, God is going to destroy them completely. And then the Jewish people will already have been in the land and will be restored. Their sins will be forgiven, and then there'll be a restoration of God's glory. And that's what we're observing right now. And Iran is just building that up and building that up and building that up to a total destruction for the enemies of Israel.
And the most important part of this prophecy is the witness of this war motivating people to move to Eretz Yisrael. You see, not all Jews are in Eretz Yisrael when we build the Beis Hamikdash. Not all Jews are in Eretz Yisrael when Mashiach comes. In fact, Mashiach's job will be to convince the Jews to come to Eretz Yisrael. That's pretty clear. Read the Rambam. So let's take a look about the Jews returning at the end of exile. Let's take a look at this clip.
What about the Jewish people? That God is going to forgive the children of Israel. It doesn't say here that the Jews are great. No, you were sent into exile because of your transgressions. And in fact, I hid my face from them. Verse 24. I assure you one thing. You don't need a commentary to read this chapter. In fact, the classical medieval commentators would have envied you to have only been living in our time to be able to witness this. Rashi would have loved to have witnessed this. He could not, as he lived 1,000 years ago. Maimonides could not. He lived 900 years ago. So just read it. When I have brought them back and gathered them from the enemy's land, returned them here. Iraq used to have hundreds of thousands of Jews. There are no Jews left there. They're gone. There's hundreds of thousands of Jews in Islamic lands, in Arab lands. They're not there anymore. They're here in the land of Israel. At least half of known Jews in the world living here in Israel. That has not been the case since the days of Hezekiah, 2,700 years since the Neo-Assyrian Empire.
So there you have it, my friends. We're in the end of times. We're halfway through the book of Ezekiel. We're up to the point where Iran, Persia comes to war against Israel, and half the Jews have returned. And yet, this day, the 23rd of Sivan, is an interesting day. According to the Ma'am Loes, this is the day that Korach began his uprising. And Dasan Va'aviron said, there is no promised land. But in America, for some reason, they're going to read Shalach, this parsha, instead of Korach, like we do in Eretz Yisrael. And by them reading Parsha Shlach, we have 2 times that the Jewish people, 2 Shabbosim, they're reading the message of Shlach. Now, of course, there's the story of the Meraglim. That's an important part of the story, but that's not the story. The real story of the Meraglim is that the Jews didn't want to come. Yes, we can blame the leaders. Yes, the leaders possibly could have made the rest of the Jews come, but that's not the real heart of the story. To talk about Lashon Hara and to talk about the leaders who sinned and the spies who sinned, it's true. But the heart of the story is that the Jewish people cried and say, we don't want to come to Eretz Yisrael. Vayimoasu be'eretz chemda, they were disgusted by God's beautiful land. And kirotzu avodecho es avoneho, when we start to kiss the stones of Eretz Yisrael, when we start to clean the streets of Eretz Yisrael, when we become with an Aliyah attitude where we want to raise up, we want to have a Geula attitude, we want to see a problem in Eretz Yisrael and come fix it. So instead of sitting in Golus and complaining about the situation in Eretz Yisrael, come, join the heart of Klal Yisrael. Why be a part of Klal Yisrael when you could be part of Klal Yisrael? Be strong and courageous. Chazak va'amatz. Shalom from just outside Jerusalem.